He has money. He has power. He has fame. He's got people's attention. He has the masses following him. And he is basically singing in this song, I am not worth your time, to his kids. Hey, and welcome to the Anything But Quiet Time podcast. I say that like an old person, I realize. Welcome to the anything. It's like when if you're working for Disney and you're welcoming some like new tour in for the Haunted Mansion.
What do you want to say?
Welcome.
What do you want to say? What's up?
Hi. This is the Anything But Quiet Time podcast.
All
Wouldn't that have been better?
You're such a cool podcaster now.
Let's go back. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I thought you were going to do it again.
Not going to do
it.
All
right. I want to start off with this week. And by the way, thank you for subscribing. And also a reminder, I think it really helps me with other channels I follow. Hit that bell.
Hit the bell.
If you're on YouTube watching, to get notified, because then when a new episode or new clip comes out, then you can be notified that it's there. And we thank you so many have subscribed over the past couple of weeks, as we just mentioned this. And because of that, more people saw something that I said.
What did you say?
Where a couple of weeks ago, I offended a bunch of people. And
what?
I'm here to say, I double down and don't apologize.
What? No. Wait.
I double down and do not apologize.
I have no idea what this is about, but he should apologize.
You'll agree with me in a second.
Oh, you weren't offensive?
This is, if you are a weekly listener or viewer of this podcast, I think you'll agree with me too. Because when we have our short clips go out on YouTube, for whatever reason, atheists / atheist trolls, and that was most of the comments that we received, highly disagreed with something that I said. And it was just overwhelming. I mean, there were like dozens of comments. Yeah. And it was all against God. Right?
They were. Okay. So what did you say?
Yeah. And so by the way, if you are I want to say two things. If you're a regular viewer of this and you're not necessarily a Christian, first of all, we appreciate it. And we're just great for good conversation.
Right.
And I also want to say the intellectual honesty of some of these comments that are not Christian, that we're really just making a response, because I think that's totally appropriate.
Yeah.
Some of them just went to that troll mentality.
Yeah. And we're not saying all atheists are trolls.
No.
I've known
Christian trolls too.
Well, I've known Christian trolls and I've known very kind atheists.
Yes.
So,
well, and ironically, this is the debate.
Okay.
Can you be kind without God, without the Bible as your moral guide? And of course, the answer is yes, you can be a moral person.
You can show kindness, yes.
The clip, I didn't say everything that I had said in the big podcast, but the clip was this: morals, there's no reason for morals without God. And basically, it's just like there's no reason for anything. Now, some of the people thought I was saying, they said, okay, so without your book, your book that you, with your Sky Daddy, as some of them use that term.
Sky Daddy.
Oh, that's a big term online, yeah.
Which I don't mind, but I know that they're being flippant.
Yeah.
So I probably won't say it.
So don't say it. I wouldn't say that. Yeah. So without your Sky Daddy and your book,
well, he's my daddy God.
Then what you're saying is you'd be murdering people. It is what they're saying.
Okay.
No. There's just no reason to not do anything or to do anything if we are here by chance. So that was one pushback. They thought I was saying that, so you'll just go off the deep end. No. I think we can live if there was no God, we can live comfortably and treat each other kindness. I'm still only going to do what's good for me, though. I'm not truly going to serve others if I know that there's no God. There's no reason to do anything nice. Nothing is moral by objective standards.
You were saying though that we have like communal agreements.
So this was the comment that was really like, okay, I see what you're really like. It's a philosophical debate is what this guy really said. He said this is actually one of the easiest Christian arguments to counter. Over hundreds of thousands of years, humans have determined what is wrong or right through interacting with each other in communities and society. Something is wrong or right because we all have agreed so. It really is that simple. And there was one person that kind of added on to this where they said, anything that benefits the survival of the human race, that's what's moral. Now, again, I just don't find a reason because societies have disagreed.
I was going to say, you could also make the opposing argument of, as people over the millennia, you also discovered that they have, violently taken one another's lives.
First of all, yeah, I think there's a lot of violent cultures in the past.
So I don't, there's a lot of holes in that for me, but I completely concur that yes, we have as a community come together and said this based off of what, though, is also what I would ask.
Based off of what is still the question that hasn't been answered. Yeah. And again, it's if it's working towards, well, first I want to say on the societies thing, you would have to equally validate Joseph Stalin and how he treated the Russian people and say, well, that's what they chose for their morality. And it's just as valid as democracy or any sort of, where people aren't getting exterminated just because a dictator said so.
Right.
But you'd have to, if there is no reason, objective reason, then it's just as valid as the way the United States works or any country works. But with what he's saying and with what somebody tagged on in a different comment, it's whatever benefits the human race. Mm-hmm. And I would say then we are really morally wrong when we speed. If you're speeding in a car, it's dangerous to others and dangerous to yourself. You're not benefiting the human race. I mean, if you really want to get in depth with it, if you eat a piece of pie or candy, something that's not healthy for you, then that would be morally wrong. I mean, you could take it to the ultimate extreme, but I think what I would ask somebody in this situation, because I would just say typically, not always, but typically I would know where somebody would stand the way they comment with this. Mm-hmm. Is if they say whatever benefits the human race, that is moral, then I would reply to them, then you must be pro-life. On the issue of abortion, you would have to be pro-life, unless they would say in case the mother's life or something. But other than that, and yet I think
because it would promote the human race.
It would promote the human life, right? No matter the circumstance, that's what benefits the human race. Mm-hmm. Especially because experts recently have said depopulation is the biggest threat over the next few decades because millennials and Gen Z are having less and less kids. So then the concern is so. I would respond with that if I was none of these people I responded to because I just don't think it was going to go anywhere. And you can read the comments for yourself. It's one of our clips a few weeks ago. That's what I would reply with. Now, I also want to say, I think there are people in the pro-life movement that aren't necessarily Christian. So you don't have to be a Christian to be a pro-lifer. But I would just say a majority of these comments would probably not be. And so I guess the point is there's always going to be holes in that standard of if we just choose for ourselves what's moral, then something is always going to be hypocritical. I was watching a documentary of this guy that stole college football signs, like literally like signs they're signing on the sideline to pick the play. Connor Stallions is his name with the University of Michigan. There's a big sports scandal. And everybody that's kind of in the documentary that I think he did cheat to some degree. Everybody that's in it that's on the Michigan side is kind of like laughing about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the rival, Ohio State, there's a couple people interviewed with that, and they're not happy about it. But it would be reverse, in my opinion, if it was Ohio State. They'd be kind of, we all do that.
Yeah, we do.
Because it's self-preference.
Right.
And so there's unless there's an objective, nothing is right or nothing is wrong.
Right. So how do you be analytical?
In a conversation like that, again, I would ask prodding questions, certainly.
Sure.
And we had a great conversation on our radio show for somebody that says, I don't believe in God. Well, why? And see where they're coming from first.
Absolutely.
And I think one thing here, maybe not for all 50 some comments, but for many, it would be why if I gave you evidence, really good evidence for God, and you concluded that it was really good, would you then follow God? Mm-hmm. And if their response in that situation is no, then I wouldn't waste your time on a conversation at that point.
Yeah, they're not ready to go there.
It's not an intellectual issue, it's a heart issue.
Yeah.
And so that's where I have to go. That's the pearls before swine kind of thing. Now, hey, listen, if they're in my life, if they're an atheist at work or somebody that's against Christianity in my neighborhood or whatever, I'm going to continue to be friends with them. There's no reason we can't be kind and loving.
Sure.
And, but when these conversations come up, I do want to know where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. I think the origin of kindness is what was up for debate.
Sure. That's exactly right. Why be kind if it doesn't benefit you?
Right.
Unless we are instructed by a creator that is the way that we should live life.
I think we can define kindness, but if it doesn't align with God's definition, it's then we need to redefine our definition of kindness.
Well, I think the world has for themselves. If they don't believe in God, kindness is love.
Love
is just being an advocate of just saying thumbs up to anything that anybody wants to do.
Which isn't love, because love has boundaries.
Yeah.
And when I say boundaries, it has boundaries in place for, to use that phrase, the promotion of the human race. So if there's no boundary right there at the cliff of the Grand Canyon, people are going to fall over the cliff.
Sure.
So lovingly and kindly, they have put these boundaries in place so that people don't get hurt. And so that's what I mean by boundaries, that they're in place for the benefit of us to promote our welfare. But that is love, a parent telling a little one no so they don't touch the hot stove.
Well, and some things like that, we see it as obvious.
Yes.
We know that if somebody in our life is an addict to substance abuse, we don't say, if that's the way you want to live your life, I support it. I'm an ally. Like we don't say it. Nobody says it on that.
Not
it's
yet.
Obvious. Not yet. But as for other issues in life, whatever it might be, I mean, seriously, there's a lot. Your mind may be going to one, but there's a lot where people just say, you do you and I'm for you. And if God is real, then that's not the way that humanity prospers. It's only what he's declared, because he is the objective standard.
There's a new song out that you and I watched the video of the other day. It's called Somebody Save Me. I don't know how new. Maybe it's a couple months old. But this is an Eminem song. And there's this part that just, all of this song stands out to me. When it was released, his daughter, who's now an adult woman, she said, I don't think I can watch the video again because it made me cry the first time. And it's an apology to his children for being unavailable in the throes of addiction. But one of the lines that the guy Jelly Roll, who is singing, singing about the fact that it seems to help this lifestyle that he's chosen. I'm trying to find the exact words, because that when you're an addict, and we don't even want to joke about being an addict, and dealing with what that is. I have heard from people who have been addicts, who are addicts. It's not as simple as sometimes it's made. Oh, just stop, or just go to rehab, or clearly you can relapse, because this is a pattern in your mind. And if you are not finding full satisfaction, and I know in my own life, I stray from knowing that my full satisfaction can only be found in Jesus Christ.
Sure.
He is the only one. His grace is enough. It's sufficient. Nothing else is going to meet that need. Nothing. So that when I stray from knowing that, and my focus goes over here, or it goes over here on things that I know are not true, that are not going to be of good report, that are a pure way of thinking, that I am going to not be satisfied. But you're a Christian, you should be satisfied. No, because my thinking has gone over here and over there.
Sure.
But Jesus said, seek first the kingdom of heaven first. All these things will be taken care of. Everything else will be taken care of. But if I got him not being first... I see through the words of Eminem, which I never thought I'd be saying on anything but Quiet Time podcast. But I generally, like when my son was wanting to listen to like Slim Shady and stuff like that, there are lyrics here I am not okay with.
Right, yeah.
And it came up on the Today Show that, he had this new album out. It's called The Death of Slim Shady or something was coming out. I was like, and I know that in the past he has been such a force with music. But then at the beginning of this video, you see him strung out on his bed, and his child is trying to wake him up to just go eat.
Yeah.
And it's an apology to his children, and you cannot help but feel the remorse and the hopelessness of this man. And you're moved by it, because the world has nothing else to give him.
Yeah.
He has money, he has power, he has fame, he's got people's attention, he has the masses following him. And he is basically singing in this song, I am not worth your time, to his kids. And it just hurts your heart. Because look, I've never really known Eminem on any level other than that he's this famous guy who does rapping. I never saw 8 Mile. I know that you're aware of him more than I am. So I am very much, it's like one of those things where you meet a famous person or a famous athlete and you're like, No idea. So you can treat him like a normal person.
Right. You're real chill around him.
Literally wanting to go up to this man that I know nothing about and put arms around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And say, can I... Maybe somebody's tried to share the authentic Jesus with him from a broken stance.
Yeah.
Because that's all I can be. I am a broken person. And there was that incredible quote that we heard the other day from, I can't remember his name. Jay somebody, but he was sharing, he was this teacher and he was doing a lecture and a kid comes up to him afterwards, clearly did not believe in God, but he appreciated his teaching style. He's like, I love hearing your lectures. I'm so grateful. It was his last lecture as a teacher. And he said, but I think I'm sorry, I disagree with you. I think Christianity is a crutch. And he said, boy, in his mind, he's like, well, I hope you break both your legs. I mean, he didn't say that thankfully out loud, but he thought it. And he said, let me ask you something. If you had 2 bum legs, would you not use a wheelchair? Yeah, I would. Okay, well, if you only had the use of one of your legs, would you not use a crutch? Yes. Okay, my point is that I don't know one person who's not broken.
Yeah.
We are all broken. So I want to make sure that people know this is a broken vessel that God has chosen to pour through, that I am not a person to be put on a pedestal, except for if anybody was to put me up there, that his light shined through to light up the room, having nothing to do with me. And that it will only emphasize the parts where I am broken if I'm put on the pedestal, but for his glory, right?
Yeah.
We are broken people. And so if we meet an atheist, if we meet somebody who doesn't believe as we do, it has nothing to do with us being smarter than you, intellectualizing you out the room because I know how to defend my faith. It has to do with I've just been given this gift. Mm-hmm. And I want to wrap my arms around you and tell you that in those moments where you think this is it, this is all that life has to offer you. Like Eminem at the end of his rapidly fraying rope. Yeah. I'm not worth it to his precious children.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's interesting too, because at the end of that song, or just the conclusion at the end of the song is, I screwed up. Yeah. And it's just always going to be there. And obviously, I think we all live that to some degree. We have regrets. But if you're a person of faith, if you know that eventually every tear is wiped away, I can't imagine how some of my biggest mistakes that hurt people will be wiped away and they'll just be okay.
Right.
Because it's like when we apologize, everything better? Well, no, it's not. It's not better. It's not what you did. You still did what you did.
All of that goes away, though, in the presence of his glory.
Yeah.
It's like that stuff doesn't even matter because it's never been about me.
And that's where the hope is. And so when you have this worldview of, unfortunately, I think like Eminem does, because I think he's such a powerful lyricist when he's talking about these types of subjects, right? There's nothing else to offer. It's just, I screwed up and there's this scar that will never heal. And that completely stinks. But I think that's, you made me think too about, these comments that we've got from some, I think some well-meaning atheists is, you do see the brokenness in this world, right? And I think they would acknowledge yes.
Oh yeah, I think they believe that sociopaths are killing and that's not okay, clearly.
But then overall, how do you fix it? Because I think many would find injustice anywhere. There's so many people that disagree that everybody can't be right. And so how would you go about fixing the brokenness?
I think you, from their stance, and I can't really speak as an atheist, but from their stance, they might be wounded by that question just because they're like, what do you mean? First of all, I'm a human being. And when I see other people suffering, that impacts me. And so I guess I think a lot of folks, they just want to try to leave this world a little bit better than they found it. If they can leave like one last thing, anything good behind, that was maybe a life well lived. If they can just try to do good. And
the question is,
by definition,
is good?
What is good? And I completely concur. As a Christian, I can only say God. God is good. And Jesus brought that to the attention of the good teacher when the guy called him out and said, good teacher, he's going to ask him a question. And Jesus kind of knows that this guy's about to go for the jugular with a really good question or something. And Jesus knows this guy. sees him coming a mile off, and he goes straight. He kind of catches him in his own words. Good. What do you mean? Why do you call me good? Only God is good. Well, him being God, he could, say that, but he's also catching the guy in his words. But these are the lines I found it. It's mostly the chorus, but one of the later choruses. Somebody save me from myself. I've spent so long living in hell. They say my lifestyle is bad for my health. It's the only thing that seems to help. And I know that he's talking about that next fix.
Yeah, right.
Or that next, I don't know, whatever it is that it just feels a little bit good. It takes the edge off for a little bit until the next. And I think we can all relate to that apart from taking things to Jesus. I know I can. As a Christian, I get to those places of I have allowed the enemy a foothold somewhere in my thinking. And I am doubting something, like just I'm allowing fear to attack or whatever, having an anxiety disorder too, that's very easy. But he can get that foothold and he can start trying to get me to buy into, that next shopping trip, maybe a little something there. I've been looking for this or that. My son and I were having that conversation. He said, I can kind of understand getting that next thing. He said, because, like on Fortnite, he'll get a new skin. He'll be like, all right, I'm Optimus Prime today. Yeah. Tomorrow I want to be, I don't know, Jack Sparrow or something. And he's like, I enjoy it for a little bit, but I want the next thing. And I'm like, he just defined what we all know to be true.
It never ends.
It will never end. So how does it end? And Jesus said, so, baby, if you're seeking me first and treasure that's not here, but in heaven, that's the stuff you want where moths and dust doesn't corrupt it.
It to combine these and try not to beat a dead horse, but I think it's just with everything you're saying, just trying to running through the filter of the worldview that I've presented from these comments.
Right.
And to me, it's a lot like the animals in the wild.
Yeah.
Nothing is moral or immoral for a lot. No, I think the world's broken. So I think we see eventually animals, prey and predator lay down together. And I think everything that was originally created will be perfect. So I don't think you'll see lions eating other animals necessarily. But in this world that we're living in, they're animals. They don't necessarily have souls or anything that we're taught about, I guess life would be a lot like that, like your shopping, like Eminem's fix or any addict's fix. If you have this worldview, what would be moral is for you to stand up for your pride of lions, right? And for you to protect your own kids.
Sure.
But other than that, there's no reason for anything. You could kill another lion if they looked at you funny. You're obviously, the only thing you're looking forward to is your next meal. I think just life is harsh like that.
Yeah.
If there is no loving God that created us all.
Well, and I also see a lot of celebrities who might not be very bold about their faith system. They may not even have a faith, but they'll pour into a charity. They'll pour into even something that's environmental. And I do believe that, Christians are very much associated prevalently. Not all of us are voting conservative, but we're seen as a conservative lifestyle, certainly, right? And so they hear a lot of propaganda maybe against trying to save the world, and people kind of get mocked about, those people, what are they, hippies or whatever. But God also commanded us that we are to take care of what he has given us.
Sure.
So perhaps there's a flippant side to what they see in our lifestyle, and we'll get classified in this lump group as, I think right now, classifying atheists in a lump group right now, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But saying, are you saying it's not okay to pour into a charity? No, I think it's great.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that. But there's just no reason to.
The reason behind it.
Right.
For me, and the reason I've discovered to want to take care of the planet.
Yeah. Right.
Is because this is God's creation, and because people are God's creation, and this is the motivation behind it.
Well, and quite frankly, if I'm a celebrity that is an atheist. In my mind, again, I haven't been in somebody's shoes that is a celebrity, has that public image to keep after, and I don't see things from an atheist perspective. But I think if I'm in that situation, I am giving to a charity for public image. Now, I might be really passionate about a cause, or maybe I am just a nice person, and that is great and even good. It's just if I had an atheist worldview, I would tell that celebrity, yeah, but you don't have to, because there's no reason for anything. But I will say, you're right. There can be kind of two sides of the coin here, where generally speaking, I heard Pastor Matt Chandler say something like this. Generally speaking, conservatives can often want the king, but not the kingdom. And liberals want the kingdom, but not the king. And so, whether it's sexual ethics, whether it is giving to charities and not caring about the environment, generally speaking, every individual is different. So I don't want to offend you by listening and saying this is who you are. But it is, especially if you go back a few episodes in our podcast, I went over Ephesians and N.T. Wright's new perspective that the new creation, physical and spiritual, are reunited. And so we have the reason to, as Christians, take care of the environment and literal that, whether it's that pollution sense or that various littering in my own actions and keeping the environment clean, taking care of others and the injustice of whether it's racism, people, refugees that might be around me. I'm not even talking about voting here about precedents. I'm talking about if there's a family that lives next door to me that are refugees, treating them kindly and accepting them and giving them food, however I can help. And so there is, yes, we need to do good now, but ultimately it all hinges on the reason of the hope that we have because we want the king too.
So if you're only, if your sights are set on what I can be doing in this life because this is the only one, then your scope is going to be different.
Yeah, right? And I think that's objectively true. I think they would agree with that too.
And I think it's so important to find out about the people who are around us, to find out about those who are our neighbors. And you see the stories, the documentaries even, it might even be a town over and you're like, oh my word, that was happening next door and I had no idea.
Yeah.
Why don't I have an idea?
My head shouldn't be in the sand about this world.
Right. I need to make sure that I'm checking in with people and seeing how they're doing. If I find out that they're of a different faith or of a different persuasion altogether, Lord, grant me an opportunity. Would you? Or if I'm the wrong person, this is what I can do. I can live a life for you, an example of what a person who really is trying their utmost to serve Jesus with all that they have, brokenness and all, because we're not going to get it perfect. But with everything I have, Lord, let your light shine through this broken person so that people could go, you know what? Say what you want to say. That person, that Christian over there, they authentically live their life.
That's how it should be.
And I recently got through the entire, and it wasn't like it was a struggle at all, got through the book. It was a pleasure to hear Nabil Qureshi share his own story from an audiobook.
I am so excited about this. I know we talked a lot longer than I thought about that. So give us a couple hooks here. I cannot wait for next week.
So his best friend in life, I would probably venture to say, other than his precious wife, was a guy named David. And David was a Christian. And David would eventually become the guy that leads this Muslim, this devout, in love with Allah and the Prophet Muhammad that he knew, that he was taught about by his devout and beautiful family. Like this was a man who treasured his family and his faith, but was led in seeking Allah. Finding Jesus is the name of this book.
Yeah. Wow.
And David was that friend. And David told me, I heard him in an interview, like he had a Muslim friend before Nabil, and he was an imam at a mosque, and they were like workout buddies or something.
Okay.
They were friends like 6 months. Now, it should be said that David, before becoming a Christian, was an atheist. And it was a friend of his that, like, he almost gave the same setup that he would later give Nabil to this Christian friend of his. It was almost like, hey, you crazy Christians or whatever, something about the Bible not being true. And his friend was like, oh, really? And was prepared to like kind of help him.
Yeah.
And as soon as David starts finding out facts, because he was very analytically minded, very fact-oriented in data, he grabbed hold of information and was convinced that Jesus, this is real, and that it hinges, our faith, of course, hinges on the person of Jesus Christ, that he lived, he was crucified, and he rose again. And when he was like, there's enough information. In fact, you have to have more faith to not believe.
Sure.
He was convinced. But his first buddy, as a Christian, a buddy of a different faith, he didn't really figure out like the finesse that you can like bring into the charisma you should hopefully bring into a conversation. Hey, what you're believing is kind of total nonsense or whatever. Like,
right.
It didn't go great. So his first 6 months of being a friend with this guy, it was like the last 6 months as well. And he's like, all right, he and Nabil are in college. And Nabil is this new person that's been brought into his life. And they're in this debate type team.
Okay.
Like they're in college and they're on a group outing to a hotel. They end up being roomies. And David is literally on his bed reading his Bible and praying, Lord, the last time that I was friends with a Muslim guy, it didn't go great. So if you want me to talk to him, I feel like he's going to have to be the first one to say anything.
Yeah, sure.
The next second, like he's praying this prayer, Nabil comes in the room, sees he's reading a Bible and goes, you can't trust anything that book says.
And here we go.
And David goes, go on. Their relationship and what Nabil shares, it informed my faith.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that also brings out this empathy in you for all people. And it brings you that place that Christ wants us to be, which is seeing people through his eyes and not my mortal eyes that, yes, we are competitive human beings because we're competitive. And our faith is best because obviously we've been informed of the truth, but we do find that human part of us that also is like, but because I know the truth, it's really frustrating that you don't know the truth. It gets into this weird human, competitive, defensive place that it can become.
Well, and we've had conversations over the years. I mean, me and you, but I think just Christians in general, of what is the best strategy? Is it to intellectually approach a conversation, or is it to just simply let my actions speak for my faith? Now, I think the gospel is information. I think you can't just smile at somebody and then, I want to have a relationship with Jesus because that guy smiled at me. I don't think that's totally possible. But some people's emphasis is more on just action in general, and some people more on, no, I need to have a defense of my faith. And a lot can be said about both. But I think, as you're presenting, when both come together,
yes,
it is a beautiful thing.
It's powerful.
A beautiful thing.
And the relationship Nabil Qureshi, who has since gone on to be with Jesus, he said is key. He said he had done his share of street ministry, and there's a time and a place to share, because maybe 2 of the seeds that are thrown out will get planted.
Sure.
And most would argue, well, then it was worth it, right?
Sure.
But he was really encouraging for it to be landing in soil that's ready, for those seeds to land in good soil. David became his friend in a way that he realized, this guy loves me.
Yeah.
And he's gonna really listen to what I'm saying. And he really cared about him. In fact, he was friends with Nabil for years before Nabil said yes to Jesus.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like an overnight thing. This was, I'm there for you, buddy. Like talking with him, his family would come over, built a relationship. And something that really stood out to me that Nabil shares is that his mom, his beautiful mom, is a Muslim lady. You clearly can most of the time tell if people are Muslim, if they're very strong in their faith, depending on, how they grew up and how they were raised. If they're wearing the shawl over their head, he said it was very sad that not one time was his mother ever invited into a Christian home. Not one time was she welcomed in that way.
Yeah.
And it saddened him, especially because he's known so many incredible Christian families, that was not something that was expressed to her when she first came to the United States. And he's like, my friends' families don't count. I'm talking about the time when she first came to the United States. And I thought, oh my gosh, first of all, they need to come to Houston, Texas, because everybody here is pretty hospitable. And we have probably the most diversity in the United States.
Yeah.
But after having said that comment, when's the last time I've invited a Muslim woman into my home?
Sure.
And if there's ever an opportunity, God grants us opportunities that are of your timing and your will.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to share more.
I can't wait to find out what was, the steps in him trusting Jesus.
And what will help us be able to maybe put out a defense for our faith, but in a way not to be justified and feel better about our lives, but to bless people, to wrap those arms around the people who really feel I'm not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that'll be next week on the Anything But Quiet Time podcast. And so with that heart, I do sincerely mean that of anybody that comments on and leave any feedback for that matter. If you're an atheist stumbling into just this episode for the first time, feel free to comment whatever.
Or ask questions. Ask us about Jesus.
Yeah.
Or if you're ready to say yes to him, honestly, we have said this before, it is as easy as saying yes.
Yeah.
I submit. We've heard of sinners' prayers. Maybe that's something you've never heard of before. There is no perfect way to say yes to Jesus except to just say yes.
Yeah.
I guess that is perfect.
Trusting that he is who he said he is.
Yeah.
And so with that heart, I do respond to those comments. But I also echo what I said at the beginning. I do not apologize. I do double down.
With a humble heart.
I will not relent. I love you, but I will not relent. Have a great week.
I would hope nothing otherwise.